So good morning, good evening to people around the world. Welcome to our webinar titled on creating economic, social, and intellectual value. This webinar is under the auspices of the World Zarathustra Chamber of Commerce, and the emphasis in the World Zarathustra Chamber of Commerce is building the spirit of entrepreneurship. And the mantra of entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity beyond controlled resources. The webinar today is a conversation. So what we are doing is there'll be people talking, and then we will have a dialogue at the end that we can share and learn from each other. The webinar is being recorded, and it'll be made available on the YouTube channel. We are fortunate today to have 4 panelists. Neville Shroff, who is the president and managing trustee of the Zoroastrian Association and Zoroastrian Charitable Trust of Hong Kong in Canton and Macau. He's based in Hong Kong. Ravishankar, who's the director of the J Tata Endowment for Higher Education. Ryan Pereira, he's the regional officer for the United States India Education Foundation. Farrokh Rustomjee, who is the chief executive of the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund. The forthcoming webinars are on 18th April, 16th May, and June 20th. The times are given out there. The forthcoming webinar on the 18th of April is Success in 3 domains: education, finance, and medicine. And the panelists are Aisa Rabadi Rao, Benush Setna, and Garshas Sarush. Aisha has a PhD in education, Benush has worked in finance, and Sarush is getting his MD in medicine. And they will talk about their lives, their careers, and what's involved in succeeding in these 3 disciplines. On the 16th of May, we have our focus is on entrepreneurship. And what we're looking at here is how do you create economic, social, and intellectual wealth? What are the issues involved? And the panelists there are Idil Dava, who is going to focus on the creation of economic wealth. Rohinton Mehta, who is a well-known person involved in the social domain, and he will be talking about what's involved in doing work in the social sphere. And Oshik Contractor, who is a professor, a very famous professor at Northwestern University, and he will be talking to the people about what's involved in being at a university and creating wealth. On June the 20th, we have 3 undergraduate students from India. And what we are focusing on is Vispi, Danesh Aga, and Karen Pitawala. They're going to be talking about their experiences in India and how they got around those experiences. The difficulties that they faced getting educated in India, and share their experiences with others in terms of how to negotiate and navigate the education system in India. The plan for the conversation today is as follows. What this webinar is about is 5 minutes. Each panelist will introduce himself for 2 minutes each, a total of 8 minutes. And then each of them will talk for 8 minutes. That's a total of 36 minutes. And Karishma Koka will come along and synthesize what the 3 panelists have said, and she will talk for 10 minutes. We will then have a moderated dialogue to foster communication between panelists and participants. And then there'll be some closing remarks. So we are expecting to finish in 90 minutes, but we will continue for those who'd like to continue chatting. So what are we about? The World Zarathustra Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with the Zarathustra faculty in academia, envision empowering Zarathustra students around the world to learn how to create economic, cultural, and intellectual value. So the idea is to help our next generation to learn how to create economic, cultural, and intellectual value. The Zoroastrian Faculty Network mission is to facilitate Zarathustra youth through higher and specialized education to pursue careers in industry, government, and academia, as business entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and knowledge entrepreneurs. The ZFN webinars are put together in the form of conversations to help Zartusti youth and their parents, with the support of their parents, which is very important, to attain higher and specialized education. And this initiative has been supported by the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund, and the information is given there. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Neville Shroff and request him to introduce himself and then what he has to say about entrepreneurship and his life.
Thank you, Farrokh. Thank you for the invitation to participate and be a panelist on this very valuable topic. I'd also like to thank all the organizers for organizing this event, Karishma, Yazdi, and the whole ZFN team. I think my details are already on the slide, so I'm not going to really go into it. What I will go into is our company, what we actually do. As you know, I'm the CEO and Managing Director of the Shroff & Company Limited and Direct International Hong Kong. And we are a company based in Hong Kong, but we have 2 joint venture factories in China, one in garments and one in household kitchenware products. We also have an office in Jiaxing, which is near Shanghai, which helps us do sourcing within China. So basically our business is sourcing and manufacturing in China itself. I myself trained as a scientist and went into business. So that may be an interesting scenario which some of you students can try to digest. Okay, going into the next slide, which is, if you can change the slide, Yazdi. Yeah. The first part of the slide is lessons from academic journey. Well, first and foremost, as an individual, young person, a young Zoroastrian or student, you need to decide on your career path, whether it be in the arts, the sciences, business, or whatever it may be. You must then make a decision that this is what you are interested in to study and follow that pathway, particularly if your pathway is to follow a regimental professional career, for example, in law, medicine, or engineering. You must select your academic journey with the passion you desire. If you do not have a strong passion to the subject you are taking, it will make your journey far more challenging. Passion is critical to your success and your ultimate goal in life. Alternatively, you may study a subject that you are passionate about, but ultimately do something else that may take your interest and offer you a more projected career. In my case, that is exactly what happened. I had a passion for biological sciences and went on to do a master's in virology, but only to discover that I had another passion, and that of business, which then opened up a completely different career path for me. With an innate business mindset, this assisted me in deciding which direction my future would take. And of course, the money may help in making a decision. Give yourself a structured education where you can provide direction and become disciplined, to learn exceptional skills and the art of communication. Communication is key today in any profession that you will take up. So master it whilst at university. Learn from the education that you have received. In other words, use the education to enhance your intellectual values in critical thinking abilities, and use your intellectual values on how to be flexible in adapting to the constant and rapidly changing environment. Basically, my academic journey started with a scientific background, which helped me to be more methodical and to think outside the box. To use that skill set to become what I think a more effective businessman, and to use that experience to be an entrepreneur, and furthermore, from which I developed my passion to helping others and being benevolent. The next point on the slide is lessons from professional life. One needs to ask yourself, what do you want out from your professional life? Is it a job that you enjoy and look forward to going to work every morning? Or is it the money alone that you're after? Or is it making connections in your business life, in your job, with your friends? Some of the many lessons that I have learned are: money alone cannot make you happy. You need various combinations of factors. It is impossible to please everyone, so you must do what you think is the right thing to do for yourself. Learn from your failures, as you may be the most intellectual person in the world, but you will still encounter failures. Be sincere when doing business, as this will come out through as trust. And that is the most important in life. A business partner must feel that he can trust you, and you will not take him for a ride or cheat him. A patient with a doctor must be able to feel that he's able to trust his doctor in his abilities and in his knowledge, and feel comfortable with the doctor. One needs to feel that one can trust in the judgment of his lawyer, and it goes on. You must be able to show honesty and integrity in your professional life, even if the person you are dealing with is not. Do not underestimate anyone, and show the same respect that you would like to be shown. The most important lesson that I've learned is work-life balance. Although my wife would say that I'm still learning, your family and health should take priority over all else. And if you want to be truly happy, happiness is critical to your well-being. Life is a continuous learning process. Keep taking courses and updating on IT and other valuable courses, and keep asking questions to improve yourself and your knowledge. One of the quickest ways to learn and find out things is to simply ask questions. On entrepreneurship, I'll speak first on economic entrepreneurship. This is a series of proceedings, and without these two attributes in you, number one, confidence, and number two, perseverance, it would be very difficult to succeed as an entrepreneur. In any startup, you need not only a brilliant idea, but then be able to be creative from that idea before you can innovate that idea to be a product or a service. Strive to be different from everyone to succeed well. You must utilize your intellectual values and skills that you have learned to provide a solid business plan to counter all eventualities, and be able to accept failure as a common factor in any new entrepreneurial venture. Most important, that you're able to absorb all the economic and financial risks involved, i.e. use the skills obtained to assess your risk versus rewards. I normally say your rewards assessment should be at least 70% and keep your risks to a minimum. There is, of course, a saying, the higher the risk, the higher the rewards. I believe that's not necessarily true. Accept failure simply as a learning curve and then move forward. Prior to moving ahead with any new project, you need to study the economics, i.e. in which the most important is, how are you going to provide financing? Without money or funding, you cannot move forward. Need to consider how to safeguard your investment. As with any business, there is a risk. Be prepared to get a high level of responsible staff or partners to support your idea. This costs money. But as the saying goes, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. A very important factor in any business, and which I cannot stress enough, particularly in these evolving and challenging times, that you must learn to, firstly, anticipate change and uncertainty. Secondly, to adapt to the necessary changes. And finally, the third point is to be resourceful. You need to be resourceful to adapting to change quickly with the continuous changing environment. You must be competitive if you want to be successful. Without competitiveness, it's difficult to be outstanding or to succeed. Awareness, have a 180-degree vision if that is possible. Be aware of the constant change. To give a quick example, the recent pandemic affected everyone's business dramatically, but with adversity also comes opportunities. Most of the sections of our business dropped significantly, but with that we anticipated there would be a huge market for protective clothing, i.e. masks, etc. We knew we would have to adapt our strategy to change from our normal business products and be resourceful and act quickly to take advantage of this opportunity. In other words, keep your options open, be flexible, and adopt changes rapidly. Social entrepreneurship. Be socially responsible to yourself and also to your company. It is important, particularly, that if you are successful in your organization, that you help and return something back to society. It could be in many forms and not just monetary support, but assisting the community in any way you deem fit. Corporate social responsibility, CSR, is growing very rapidly in the fields of being environmentally friendly, to philanthropy, to good business practices such as compliance and governance, looking after your people, looking after your staff, and giving back. Be virtuous, morally good, and compassionate, as if you are genuine, then people will have empathy with you. One attribute that is overlooked is that you should endeavor to be a people's person. What I mean is that whatever you do in your life, that you are selling something, whether it is a product or a service. A doctor has to sell his medical knowledge. A professor at university has to sell his ability to teach well. I have to sell a product, so I need to be able to influence people and be persuasive in selling my service and my product. So I have to believe in myself and my product and my service. One interesting aspect that's happening today is ESG, environmentally, social governance is becoming very important. Being socially and environmentally sustainable with solid compliance and governance in your organization. The next part of this slide is tips for parents and young Zoroastrians. To the parents, I can only suggest that they should encourage their children in being creative of their own choice. Provide ample support to your child, as life today is far more challenging and stressful than in their time. Empower your child to give them confidence and be in charge of making their own decisions in their lives. If you feel your child is struggling with any issues, including possible psychiatric or mental ones, then please provide emotional support and seek professional help, as this is an increasing and concerning trend. It is crucial parents learn to recognize changes in their child's behavior. Have a happy family home, and the happiness will infiltrate to your children. Now, to young Zoroastrians, Keep all your options open in life and do not restrict yourself till you are confident in yourself that this is going to be your future. The world is your oyster and there are opportunities everywhere. So seek them out and into your own strengths and your own confidence. Just my thoughts are that the last few decades, everyone has looked to the West. It is your time, in your time frame now, to look at the enormous opportunities in the East. Look where others are still not looking yet. I.e., the next few decades will be India and China. There is no stopping China. So look for ventures incorporating the East, and yes, certainly think outside the box. In other words, again, keep all your options open. Keep a balance between the intellectual, economic, and social entrepreneurship and integrate them as far as possible. I mean, use the intellectual knowledge you have attained and analyze that to communicate the best way forward for you. That's my advice, and thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
I must first thank both the Farrokhs, Farrokh Mistree and especially Farrokh Rustomjee for inviting me last year also to be a part of this wonderful, I think it's a great effort that you guys are doing, and I wish you the best for all the other webinars that you're planning also. So following Neville, I'm not going to read out what is there, but let me just say that I've been like a rolling stone. So I moved from accountancy at BCom to industrial economics at MCom to move on to study philosophy separately at Masters. And I never thought that I would ever be asked to teach accounting, a subject which I disliked thoroughly. But in 1986, I joined a college and they asked me to teach accounting. And I couldn't tell them that I didn't know the subject. So, but professionally, that was probably the most significant change in my life. So from there on, I went on to teach people up to final CA. Then I went on to teach the US CFA. So, you know, there is this old English saying that a rolling stone gathers no more. Just don't believe that. You can be rolling stone and gather a lot of strength, and you accumulate different kinds of experience, and you actually become a more rounded person. So I have moved from accounting, costing, philosophy, teaching, research, journalism, to scholarship. Strictly speaking, drop the concept of background. You can actually create your own background. 20th century is a classic testimony that people have made huge successes without any background whatsoever. So get inspired by those people. Yeah. May I move now, please? Okay, sorry. Yeah. See, I am going to speak from based on my academic journey, and I would suggest that I don't think there has been a better time to be a student than it is today. Like the number of subjects, the breadth of subjects that's offered today is simply phenomenal. Yesterday, I was taking a look at Masters in Cartography. How many universities are offering Masters? There is one university called Kentucky University offers a Masters in Digital Mapping. Nobody else seems to be offering that. So I think the first thing that you have today is an enormous variety of courses. So don't fall into current fashionable trends and make a choice that you may live to regret later on. Take a good look at what is there, what drives you essentially. Say, for example, you're good at math. Ask yourself what you can do with an interest in math. You could probably do a 2-year master's in ecology. You know, you actually do a mathematics of ecology, a 2-year master's. There is an incredible range of opportunities today, something which we never saw. There was standard medicine, engineering, law. Today, you can go way beyond that. Take, for example, a subject like physics. There is no subject called physics anymore. There is particle physics, there is high energy physics, there is cryogenics, The subject has so many variations within itself. So be alive to what the world of universities is offering you. Yeah. And whatever subject you choose to study, go outside your prescribed syllabus. If you're a student of physics, I would advise you to look at how quantum physics was born. The entire, from the beginning of the 20th century right up to say 1935, that exciting period where some of the best minds in the world were debating. So if you get to, build a certain perspective of history of that subject, you will actually pick up a lot more about the subject than just going by your prescribed syllabus book. Yeah. But one thing I must emphasize, which I notice missing, always focus on the how. And if you're a scientist, even if you're a historian, a question that you need to address is how. Supposing somebody say that it functions like this. So you have to explain how. Supposing you're working on, say, robotics. Supposing you say that the robotic can do this. You need to explain how it does it. What is within that robot? What principle does it base itself on? That it can actually do something that you think it can do. Understanding that how is very important. That is the difference between a non-active understanding of subject and an active understanding of a subject. So I always request students to ask themselves when they say that something can be done, the question immediately you ask yourself, how? If you can draw it out, it makes a lot more difference. Yeah. But conceptual clarity, if you have that, there is this great sentence by Marcus Aurelius. He talks about the splendor of the simple, simplicity. If you understand, in that movie Silence of the Lamb, Dr. Lecter talks about simplicity. Understand what it is. So even if you take an electric vehicle today, ask yourself what goes into the making of an electric vehicle. What are the concepts involved in this? And within that, what is it that you are really good at, what you can build on? So instead of doing a standard SWOT analysis, ask first and foremost what is involved in a study of this subject. Earlier people used to talk about something called as core competence. Drop that question today. Core competence. So instead of that, ask yourself, in a subject like this, what is involved? Do you know that Sony is building a car? Sony is building an electric car, and they actually showcased it. They didn't ask whether they have the competence to do this or that. They looked at what are the technological possibilities today based on what they have, and they went and did it. So the question is always to understand the potential in a subject. Yeah. So from a professional life perspective, I spent about 16 years in full-time teaching. And at the age of 39, I switched to journalism, a different profession. And at the age of 44, I quit that to become something else. At 47, I quit again to become something else. At 50, I became something else. At 60, I became something else. I'm now 66 years old and I'm still planning to do something different. People like, so you never stop, you never stagnate. In fact, the one thing I've been frightened about in my life is stagnation. I don't want to stagnate. Jack Nicholson, the great actor, he said that if he ever read in a review the predictable Jack Nicholson, he said that day he would stop acting. Because you have to be inventive, so you keep update yourself, because there is never a limit. Because somebody somewhere is already doing something, so in the same field, in outside the field, in the allied field, you keep asking yourself what more you can do. And I keep telling my students, if you look at any insurance in life, the only insurance that we all have is a skill that your current occupation does not require. That's your only thing. If you lose your job for whatever reason, the only thing that will save you is a skill that you have developed, which your current job does not require. Does not require. It could be anything. It could be hairdressing. It could be mehndi. It could be sewing. It could be painting. It could be anything. But focus on developing a skill which your current job does not require. Which is why when people talk about multi-skill. But what I would like to emphasize is something that you don't now need might actually come in handy in sometime. And and explore many avenues. Don't listen to people say that, today because of the influence of telecom, there is this word that people talk about, do you have the bandwidth? Don't fall for these kinds of ridiculous expressions of importing telecom into common language. There's no bandwidth. You can do what you want. You can explore multiple. There's this guy called Nicholas Dunbar. He studied the earth sciences. After that, he moved to study nuclear physics. Then he studied risk and insurance. Then he actually wrote a brilliant book called Inventing Money. So don't think that, it is, you have to balance out, find out where you can maximize your abilities. That is sure, but don't limit yourself. Yeah, don't think that I can't do this. Yeah. So the focus of this webinar is on entrepreneurship, and something that I am not, but I have seen a lot of entrepreneurs. Even in Giant Data, we have seen so many people coming out and doing something on their own. Let me take the intellectual first, and then I'll come to social and economic. Today, you'll find that it's ideas which drive the world. Imagine who would have ever thought that in electric vehicle, now you have an electric moped. Nobody would have ever thought maybe 20 years ago that a battery-driven vehicle could actually be on the road, but it is there today. So what drives business is actually an idea, and I think probably the most classic example of that is Steve Jobs, who never did any research, any market survey, because he said that I am making something that people have never even thought of. So what can you do a survey about? So the idea of doing something new, but giving it a concrete shape. So imagine, but give yourself a time. In Israel, in 1959, they set up the office of the chief scientist, and they encourage entrepreneurs. So they give them a 2-year time. In 2 years, they will underwrite their expenses. At the end of 2 years, you must have a prototype. That was the only condition. So if you set yourself that kind of a deadline, a milestone, that from an idea, I have to move to something concrete in some time frame, I must have a workable something we can develop further. Then you have a greater chance of succeeding, than otherwise. So when we speak about economic value, some of you may know time value analysis, some of you may not, but very simply, understanding the behavior of cost is vital. So for example, understanding whether costs are a decision variable is very important. So there is this concept called a sunk cost, that once you have done something, there is nothing you can do about it. So take a good call. So once it is sunk, supposing I've done a market survey. After that, I change my mind. There is nothing you can do about the cost that you've already incurred. So don't fret and frown about that you have already. It ceases to be a decision variable. So focus on understanding the behavior of cost and what cost is relevant for you in your business. Many a time people go wrong and they misunderstand the cost, and actually they come to financial ruin then. Yeah. Now, when we speak about the social dimensions today, there are two ways of looking at it. Every business has a social impact, some positive, some negative. Let's hope that you work on a business where the positive impact is greater than the negative impact. Supposing you're doing some infrastructure project, there will be some negative impact. There will be displacement of people. You have to factor that in. But focus then on creating a positive impact that will nullify the negative impact and create a net positive impact. That's one in any business. Second is businesses which are exclusively focused on creating a social impact. For example, you could consider creating a refrigerator out of clay. In the rural areas in India, where people don't have the facility of refrigerator because they don't have access to electricity. So you can't promote a refrigerator there. So you must look at, so there is this guy about some years ago actually built a refrigerator made of clay. And it can actually keep vegetables and milk fresh for 24 hours, which is more than enough. So look at businesses which can directly contribute to social impact. It could simply, today, for example, you could work on developing solar panels, which is so badly required. So think of products that people in the rural areas, people in small towns, generally people who have underprivileged, who have access, don't have access to the resources that you and I have. So that would be a direct social impact. But as I said, even if you're putting up a steel factory, you will create a social impact. The choice is yours to make. Yeah. Now, when it comes to tips for parents, I'm a parent myself. Basically, I have only one son, so we didn't have much problem there. But allow your children to do what they want. You know, that's the biggest gift that you can give your children. Stand by them, support them, correct them when you think they are going wrong. By all means, do correct them, because we don't want them going astray. If you're sure that they're going astray, but have an open dialogue. Be democratic in your dealings with your children. Don't say that I think what you're doing is wrong. Don't say that. You know, get into a dialogue mode with them and make them understand if they're going wrong, so that you can retrace steps. Because if you have gone too far away, it's difficult to come back. It's very expensive to retrace your steps. So that is the only caution. Otherwise, encourage them, create an awareness for them, help them to grow. And if they are not well informed, make it possible for them to be better informed than they are. You know, and for the students, as I said in the beginning, it's great to be a student today because there are so many streams, but that makes it actually more challenging. What do I choose? Take a simple thing, let's say data science. Every student is, blindly going into. Why won't you consider operations research? If you're good at mathematics, the original database discipline, application of mathematics, was OR, which is still relevant and extremely challenging. So the biggest risk for a student, and which the advice that I can give, is that don't get swayed in by current fashionable trends. Ask yourself deep down, what is it that you want? And what are the different ways in which the same thing can be done? Supposing you would say that I want to use data for decision making. It's a good starting point. Start drawing it up. You don't have to do only data science. You can do a master's in statistics and be good at this. So think through your educational choices, because that determine. Even if you want to do a master's in, say, business administration, today you don't have to just look at an MBA. If your interest is in supply chain, you can do a master's only in supply chain. So there's enormous variety today, which you can profit from, but which is a challenge. Yeah? So make a wise choice and reach out for help. Don't hesitate to ask for help. I was saying yesterday also when we had a mock session that look for help. Don't feel shy. There are people who are willing to help. There are support networks available. Make use of it. Yeah. Thanks again.
Good morning, good evening. For some people, very, very early in the morning. My name is Ryan Pereira, and I want to start by thanking Dr. Farrokh and the others from the Zoroastrian Faculty Network for having me part of this program. I'm a little different from the other speakers who are far more well-known in their fields than I am. I was an average, slightly below average student. But despite that, I still kept going on, got all the way to do my doctorate in the US. And after spending 15 years in the US, I returned to settle down in India to raise our daughter in India. So I've had an academic background, but now I'm something quite different. I run the Fulbright office in Western India, where I help students who are interested in higher studies in the US, as well as help both the Indian Fulbright scholars when they go to the US and the US Fulbright scholars when they come to Western India. So that's my current role. Very, very different from my academic background. But both these avenues taught me something. And that's what I would like to talk about for the next few minutes. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, I always consider myself as the unconventional doctoral student. And the reason being that anybody who looked at my grades in school and even college would have said, there's actually no chance this person's going to be successful. There's get a simple job and stick with it. And that brings me to the first point that I'd want to make. If you'll notice there's something highlighted, then that's very, very important. Never give up, continue learning, and empower your child. So the first point I want to make is grades are not everything. What do grades measure? Very often, especially in a country like India, we are conditioned that if you don't get good grades, you can't be anything in life. And I'm living proof that that's just not true. Okay? So different people learn differently. The 15 years that I spent in the US, I met well over 15, almost 20 Nobel laureates. They told me the same thing over and over again. They were constantly asked, what do you look for in your students who you want to work with you? And they all said the same thing, and that is passion. They look for somebody who has passion for the field. You don't have to be the smartest person in the class. You don't have to be really intellectually gifted. If you have passion for the field, that will get you up early in the morning, get you into the labs, doing the work. That's what's really important. So I encourage y'all, all of y'all, especially the students, don't let parents and teachers tell you that you can't do anything. Anything is possible. Stick with it, never give up. Now, when you say never give up, you might think that that's a little odd. But sometimes when we say never give up, I'm not referring to banging your head against the wall and hope for a different outcome. Okay? Sometimes when you hit a wall, it's time to step back, take time out for yourself, heal, get better, think about what went wrong, and then you can progress again. Okay, move forward, try and overcome this obstacle that you came up against. And these are some of the things when and I know Mistree is about to start his doctoral journey. These are things that you're going to experience. Take time out for yourself. For example, I know people will laugh, but when I was a doctoral student, I got to take any classes I want for free. So I took ballroom dancing. I still can't dance, but it was something different. And I think others mentioned it, do something different. Give yourself that outlet to get rid of the stress and things like that. So take time out for yourself, never ever give up. Some of the other things about the doctoral journey that I had was it helped me become systematic and organized. When I went to the US, this was about 30 years ago, I had never even seen a computer. And my gosh, I had a steep learning curve on how to work with Excel, Microsoft presentations, everything. And now it's most kids these days have it all sorted out. So you're already at a much better place than I was. And another thing that I'd like to talk about from my academic journey is to have the goal. Keep the end result in mind. What is it going to help you with? What do I need this study for? What skills can I develop that will help me achieve my goals? Keep that in mind, and then you, knowing what your end goal is, you can keep the motivation going. Okay? So that very, very important. Never give up. Second aspect, once I completed my doctorate and I was working at Cornell for many years, then I returned. Once we had a daughter, my wife and I decided to return to India to bring up our daughter. And I wasn't too thrilled with a little bit of the bureaucracy in the education system in India. So I wanted to do something different. So I pivoted off to do join the Fulbright Commission, and here I help the students who want to study in the US. I spent 15 wonderful years in the US, and this gives me the opportunity to help others who are thinking about it have the opportunity to do that as well, the same experiences I had. And I also run the Fulbright Commission. So some of the things from my professional life is being an academic, I had no clue about how to deal with people. Oh, I could leave me in the lab for 15 hours a day, I'd be fine. But when here I am meeting people all the time, interacting with them, learning how to keep different parties happy, even though they have very, very different points of view. So you have to adapt, and that's where this constant learning comes in. Okay? Constant learning, learn new skills, and I think Ravishankar and Neville spoke about this. Keep yourself updated. And I like what Ravishankar said about developing a skill that's not related to your job. In my case, I had to because it was related to my new job. Pick up new skills. Okay? And now I've reached a stage where I have supervised people, empowering them to do the work, giving them all the resources they require, and I'm also empowering students to go to the US. So it's a very, very fulfilling task. I've learned applied the skills and learned from my academic career and learned new skills while in my new position. The bottom line I wanted to make from my lessons from the professional life is that you have choices. And Neville spoke about this. He made a very interesting comment. Money is not everything. And that's exactly true. That's a choice my family made. And we are extremely happy here in India. So if you had to ask me 25 years ago when I was doing my doctorate, what are your long-term plans? Oh, I'm going to be an academic. I'm going to do groundbreaking research. And yet here I am doing something very, very different. And I'm extremely happy doing it. So keep your options open. Think about what's important to you, and then the rest of your life will follow. Moving on to entrepreneurship, as Ravi Shankar mentioned, I'm also not exactly an entrepreneur in the sense of a business entrepreneur. There are skills and knowledge that I have acquired. Being an academic, I've learned to create knowledge. As an entrepreneur, you also need to create a knowledge base. Okay? Some other things that I've learned from my academic and professional life is that we have a lot of information. We think we know a lot, but we don't really know that much. Okay? You do not know enough information. Sometimes the information you have is incomplete. And when you're thinking about uh, starting a business and all, starting with incomplete information is not good. So if you're thinking about starting this entrepreneurship program, course, make sure you have all the information in one place before you start this. Okay? And both Ravi Shankar and Neville spoke about this. You need to think about, does the world need this product or this cause? Okay? When you're thinking about starting a cause, ask yourself, does the world need this? And I think Neville spoke about it very well when he talked about how he had to pivot his business to making PPE, okay? Because that's what the world needed at this point. So keep yourself open, keep yourself flexible. As I mentioned, take time for yourself, learn constantly. You will have to learn new skills. And also very, very important, learn how to deal with failure. That is something that my academic journey taught us. Okay? Learn, and that's why playing sports, being part of teams is very important. You learn these skills of how to deal with failure, and you learn to take it in your stride. Moving on to tips for the parents, and this is something that parents, don't blame me, but I'm going to say it anyway. The first thing is believe in your child. Very often, parents have preset ideas of what they'd like their child to be. Usually it's follow them in their own footsteps, take up my practice, do things, okay, or go much further than I want to be. But let them find their own way. Guide them, but do not control what their choices are. Okay? When we're talking about guide and not control, that brings us to that third point right on top. You want to empower your child. Give them the skills, the values. Y'all have all got very, very good values. Inculcate those values in them and then trust them to make their own choices for themselves. And as Ravi Shankar mentioned very importantly, he spoke about prepare the child to live independently, but be there to support them when they need help, especially with all these things going around with the mental stress, the need to succeed, and the peer pressure. Guide them, be with them, support them. And students, one lesson I would like y'all, one tip I would like to give to y'all, and I'm going to repeat my main point is don't ever let anybody tell you you cannot do something or you're not good enough. Never give up. And through your entire life, constantly learn, constantly improvise, and you will be successful and find happiness in whatever it is you choose to do. So thank you all, and we'll take questions at the end.
Hello, everybody. I'm Farrokh Rustomjee. I would like to talk to you today about my journey of how I started my life and where I am today, and to motivate students to go forward in life, be a good human being, and excel in your studies and give back to the society. Currently, I'm the Chief Executive of the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund in India, and I have over 17 years of experience in dealing with higher education and scholarship matters. In collaboration with the Zoroastrian Faculty Network, the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund assists students in providing information and funding by way of loans, scholarships to Indian students for higher studies in India. My background has been that I'm a graduate in economics from the Loyola College way back in the 70s. And it's a journey from there onwards, where I was in South India, then moved to North India, where I had my first job in Delhi. And it was a trading company I worked with for some time, then switched over to a traveling company, travel agency, where I spent 10 years of my life. I wish to say that you can do anything if you put your mind to it and not just focus on a subject or a trade or a job. I moved from a trading company to a travel agency and did very well over there. And then I was picked up by a corporate house to be the regional director of their company in North India. It was an engineering company, and there again I spent a decade and I enjoyed what I was doing. And thereafter, I was picked up by a foreign company to manage their affairs in India, and I was looking after the India region and helping them improve their exports and imports. And thereafter, I wanted to relocate to Mumbai, and I said I should look for job opportunities in Mumbai. And one fine day, I found an advertisement to say that a trust is looking for a CEO, and I applied for that position, and I was called for an interview to Mumbai. And after several rounds of interview, I was selected to be the CEO, and I took up that challenge, even though I had no clue about how colleges function, how schools function, but I learned on the job and I applied my mind, and I was very successful, and I spent 3 years with them. We had schools across Gujarat and Maharashtra and properties to deal with. And thereafter, being a common trustee, I was asked to take up the challenge at the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund, which gives scholarships to students. And I have been there now for over 17 years, giving out scholarships. And it has been a great experience and very challenging and fulfilling to know that what we are supporting students with, they are turning out to be good citizens of India and good ambassadors when they go abroad. And I enjoy my work and what I'm doing. And I wish to tell you that I give back to the community in terms of my time, my skills, and whatever I need to be done. With the result that I was the founding director of the World Zartusti Chamber of Commerce in India. It was started by, the first chapters were in America, and then they thought that India is a good place to start with, and they came. We had inaugurated the chapters here, and I'm a core team member of the Zoroastrian Faculty Network. At WZCC, we help students, we help entrepreneurs in every possible manner. We literally handhold them and make them into entrepreneurs by giving them advice, technical help, and financing also in today's terms. We have had very good success stories at the World Zartusti Chamber of Commerce, and I'm happy to see the progress that we are making, not only in India, but across the world. We have now chapters in different countries covering the entire universe. And it's a great feeling to be part of such an organization where there is value, and we reach out to students, we reach out to entrepreneurs and help them grow their business. Presently, what I'm doing is helping students to get on with life, to be good citizens. And with this, I wish to talk to you about various matters about how students should conduct themselves during the scholastic period. Apart from just academic pursuits, which is important, students must also indulge in social services to humanity and extracurricular activities. They should make an extra effort to improve their communication skills by visiting libraries, reading books, broadening their knowledge, broadening their vision, and also giving back to the society. At school level itself, you should have the tendency and the inclination and adopt a policy of each one, teach one. This helps lesser privileged children to be educated, for which they would be so grateful to you. And that is a very satisfying experience you get when you teach someone and you help that student to go up in life. It's not just academics that one should concentrate on. You also have to choose a sport that interests you, to give a break from studies and unwind yourself. Because once your brain is saturated with learning, you need to have a diversion. You have to give yourself a break and indulge in some activity. I would give you lessons from my professional life. In your work, strive to think differently. Think out of the box. And I've practiced this in all my endeavors, and I know that it works, and it helps you to overcome difficult situations, achieve success, and overcome the roadblocks that always happen in a career, in a working life. And While you're doing different jobs, keep improving your skills by undertaking short courses relevant to your profession. Set very specific goals for what you want to master. After all, successful people build intellectual value in communities. This has been my motto, and I've not looked back from what I have been doing. Coming to entrepreneurship, during your working life, aim to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who has a vision and he turns that vision into reality. This would come naturally if you have a family business, but others can undertake professional courses on entrepreneurship at dedicated institutes. Business management courses are a good starting point, and we have conducted all such courses in WZCC. And, and people have been very grateful to us for showing them the way forward. While in business, motivate young Zoroastrians to venture into business, be a role model for them. They look up to you and take guidance from you. Join a Chamber of Commerce, WZCC, to enhance your business. This is a great way of giving back to society after being a successful entrepreneur. Help some other entrepreneur come up in life as well. When you grow your business and become successful, make it a habit to support others with your expertise. Focusing on value creation, intellectual values are qualities of mind and character that promote intellectual flourishing, critical thinking, and the pursuit of truth. These are important to students as they prepare them for their further education and future careers. I would give some tips to young Zoroastrians and to parents. Parents should encourage their children to indulge in hobbies and skills. At times, hobbies can contribute to choosing a vocation, a career. For example, arts, photography, writing. It's just not maths, science, and engineering. You have to have a diverse field as well. And there are opportunities that exist in every vocation. At school level and college, one should also consider scouting activities, which help students broaden their vision and have build up their character in an overall manner. I would end by saying that there should be limitless thinking. Students and young Zoroastrians, young people, if they have an idea, they should reach out to get help, reach out to organizations who are today ready and willing to help with in every possible manner. I thank the ZFN Zoroastrian Faculty Network for giving this opportunity to me to speak to you and to express my views, to share my ideas and how we can go forward. Thank you very much.
So now you've listened to 4 wonderful speakers and you're in the company of so many successful entrepreneurs of different types. My name is Karishma Koka. I have a background in the neurosciences with a master's again in neuroscience, but in computational neuroscience, and a bachelor's in environmental science, chemistry, and biology. So after my postdoctoral studies at the Medical Research Council in London, when my department closed down, and then the institute closed down within about 6 months, together with my mother, we started the Ultimate Achievements Academy, where through the process of metacognitive solution finding, learning how to learn, we empower, enable, catalyze other people's journeys through education, through entrepreneurship of different types. And in the next slide, when we look at what entrepreneurship is, what we see is it's a combination of 3 basic qualities: intellectual, economic, and social. And if we reflect upon our own journeys, we'll see that at different time points, these three overlap to different extents. And then we realize that the sweet spot that we all aim for, we find, that which gives us happiness, most often comes when these three areas overlap, possibly to the largest extent, but certainly in different ways at different times. Let us reflect upon what now we've heard and try and pull back from our memory, but together with our own experience, so that it lives with us. This experience of this webinar lives with us, and we can look back upon it at different times of our life and still gain from it. So Neville gave us examples of all three types of entrepreneurship: intellectual, economic, and social, demonstrating what Farrokh Rustomjee just reinforced, that entrepreneurship is the ability to go beyond the resources controlled. And some of the important things that he dwelled upon all come back to social responsibility, both at the individual and the corporate level. We all strive to do this, and most of us achieve this to different extents. But if we then are mindful of it, how much more can we achieve? He then focused on adaptability. Something he said in his talk was, critical thinking enables flexible and changing abilities, so that with our skill set, we can then go further. He talked about empowering the child through whatever we do. And he also said, confidence, perseverance, and anticipating change is important. Very important thing he said. When we work with people, people need to trust our judgment. Trust the fact that we show them respect and we can work together with them. When we endeavor to be a people's person, he highlighted that it's not just the belief in the self, but the ability to actually be genuine, be perceived as genuine, yes, but also be genuine, and then go on to environmental, social governance. And with solid compliance and this governance, together with a skill set, we can really succeed while we continue to ask questions. The balance between the three types of entrepreneurship he highlighted beautifully, and he said, seek out something and often look where others are not looking. So as parents, help our children to do that. That's quite important. Help other people's children to do that. Let's move now to Ryan. He highlighted perseverance. Wait, let me go back to Ravishankar. Let's go in order. Ravishankar. So he's moved from accounting to industry to philosophy. He said, instead of a rolling stone not gathering any moss, we should look at a rolling stone that can get rounded. So he said, be agile, continue to grow, have a multi-skill set, but equally focus on the how, on what we used to call first principles. And he said, have an active understanding. What is the concept? What makes that concept tick? So instead of a core confidence, understand the potential of your understanding something thoroughly. And then don't be scared to pivot, take a leap, take a change of direction, but have your direction right so that you can reach your goal. When we look at maximizing abilities, he talked also about the skill that your current set or your current job does not require is often that which gets you a new job and allows you to find your new path. On entrepreneurship, an important concept he left us with was set milestones and think about the sunk cost, the cost of the behaviors we have already exhibited, and then learn from that. And that everything we do has a social impact. And while we have this democratic dialogue with children to help them grow, enable them to see that we don't have to get swayed by what's current, what's in. We can find our path. to do what we want. So again, the intellectual driving the economic and having social impact. So again, the different overlaps. Let's move to Ryan now. He told us about his academic journey and very humbly tried to state that grades were not always important. But what came out of that was being able to think and be passionate and be persevere with what we do is absolutely critical, together with understanding the self, who we are. At this point, let's draw our eyes to the lower timeline that I've put down, creating value, your own journey. And at whatever age we are, we've got people of different ages in the audience today and in the future, since this is being recorded. Let's start reflecting. So Ryan talked about perseverance, understanding the self, constant learning, and having a statement of purpose. Not just writing a statement of purpose, but having a statement of purpose. And he said something very important. He said, be systematic and organized. When we're systematic and organized, the lessons that we come up with are lessons of constant learning that we can document through our journey. He said it's a very fulfilling task to empower other people to work. So the social impact of an intellectual path, although he said he's not really an economic entrepreneur, I want us all to think about this. When we empower somebody to learn and then have a social impact, those people can then have economic impact as they succeed in their life. Ryan said, learn how to deal with failures. If we link that back to what Ravishankar talked about, the sunk cost, what Neville talked about, the economic journey of pivoting and maximizing the resources. These have economic outcomes. These have social outcomes, and these have outcomes upon our own mind. And Ryan touched upon this. He says, prepare a child to live independently and go through these mental journeys. Be there to support them. I still take the support of my parents. The clocks went back today. I needed help to get there on time. So this interaction between parent and child continues through life. And Farrokh nailed it. He said, be an all-round person. So he took us through his journey. He says, take on challenges, learn on the job, use our mind. Bahumano, the concept of the good mind. Think outside the box, go beyond the call of duty and keep improving. And successful people build intellectual value, whatever they do. So we may think, I'm not an intellectual entrepreneur. I'm an economic entrepreneur. Economic entrepreneurs make way. They build things based on what he said, vision to reality. Being a role model through this journey allows other people not to make the same mistakes we make. If they're observant, if they are listening. And these intellectual values allow the pursuit of truth to become a path that other people can follow. And he highlighted the role of limitless thinking, not being constrained. Now let's look at our journey. Reflect upon the lower, it's a timeline, but it also can go in different directions. So this sweet spot during our journey will keep needing change. We have milestones, we have a direction, we have goals that keep changing. So to find this sweet spot requires us to know ourselves, identify our passion, reflect upon it and see how it can change. Learn to look around and identify options, reflect, and then continue this joyful growing journey, knowing that as we contribute to other people's lives, we're not just holistically growing ourselves, we're contributing to the holistic growth of others. This concept leads to Ushta, the combination of harmony and happiness, not just for ourselves, but for those we meet, those who read our story and learn from us, and ultimately empowering everybody to find this combination of intellectual, economic, and social entrepreneurship that then has a knock-on effect in society, because we're all working to empower each other to find our beautiful sweet spot, working together in a fellowship, making this journey easier for each other. What does it take to do this? The Zartoshti Dana has a beautiful formula. And as we begin to work towards the dialogue and talking with each other, questioning each other, let's reflect on Yasnaha 30.2, given to us by Asho Zarathustra, where it says, listen, observe, listen, reflect with the power of the good mind, and then decide in the context of furthering Ushta in Ahura Mazda's kingdom, so that we can empower ourselves to earn a trustworthy voice through the decisions we make. And these choices, these decisions, this listening and evaluating, both with our rational mind and our intuitive mind, helps us go forward and take other people forward. So what do we listen to? We listen to people talking, but we also observe. We listen to what our parents are saying and what they're telling us without saying sometimes. Our teachers, the panelists today, their experiences, and then be able to reflect. So our 4 speakers talked about how they have changed, how they have learned, how they have empowered others. And it requires constant reflection on the choices that are available and the options we make for ourselves, because we make options. And something Adel, who's also on the panel today, has always said, sometimes we have to take decisions without complete information and balance risks. So Neville talked about risk. So that we can articulate a choice of our decision that is correct for us to grow and to live that Zartoshti life, which, as we said earlier, is bringing Ushta, not just to ourselves, but to other people. With that thought, the next segment, moderated by Farrokh Mistree, is to foster a dialogue between our participants and the panelists. So please type in your questions, use the reaction button to raise your hand, and let's joyfully have this dialogue together that not just we learn from today, but that we can reflect upon later, and it leaves these little seeds in our mind that can grow into beautiful, strong trees that give us shade and shelter whenever we need it, and give us joyfully the way forward when we need to reflect upon it. Over to you, Farrokh.
Thank you, Karishma, and thank you, panelists. And since we have few people, what would be really neat is if people put their hand up and we get into the dialogue mode. There's no need to go into the chat, but if you prefer the chat, then Nazneen will be looking at the chat and telling me what's going on. So who'd like to start commenting? And it could be a comment, it could be a question. The idea is to have dialogue. And so we have about 20 minutes for that. And so who'd like to start first? There could be takeaways. You could come along and say, this is my takeaway from the talk today. Keep it short so we can have a lot more people talking, dialoguing, etc., etc.
I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
So we talked about adaptability in this seminar, and how Mr. Neville Shroff changed his business model to make equipment specific to COVID. So this adaptability, was it planned? Did you plan in the past that something like this, like something like a pandemic can happen? Or was it just an instinctive decision which you made on the spot? So do you plan something big, or is it like in your behavior or decision making on the spot? Just curious about it.
Well, basically, as I mentioned, it's anticipation. So with any epidemic, pandemic, as I've said, you should look for opportunities that could arise from it. As with all situations like this, it's going to have an impact on anyone's business when you have a global pandemic. So you have to think ahead. You have to think outside your comfort zone and think, what are the opportunities that could exist from this pandemic for my business to continue to survive? And that's anticipating it. And then you adapt to that and you find out what other products or the services that you could benefit from. I mean, adaptability usually opens up, your mind to new ideas, and you question the status quo. It gives you another instinct of how to think, outside the box. Your ability to approach this issue, this problem in a different manner, because the environment has changed. Your external environment has changed, right? And you have to use your valuable skills that you've learned in life, in your businesses, to establish a different system, a different method to respond to that change. And that's what we found. We found there was a loophole in this, but it was a temporary loophole because we found out that, yes, PPE items were very, very productive in the first 6 to 8 months, and we adapted to that. But afterwards, everybody else followed suit, and we have to, again, adapt to the following changes. So you got to keep your options open. What can develop from this? What's going to happen? So anticipation is the key, to seeing how to move forward. Okay.
Understood. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, Natalie.
Hi, thank you. I think it would be interesting to look a little more at the idea of passion and how you arrive at passion and what it means for knowing something about yourself. I find that when I do something, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I become passionate about it if I do it long enough and well enough. And so if I ask myself, let me do what I'm most passionate about, that's not really going to work for me because I can't decide. I know if I'd be doing this or if I'd be doing that or if I'd be doing this other job or this other role, I would be quite passionate about it. I would get taken up in it and my energies would be focused on that. My attention and my regard for what I was doing would increase. Another thing about this is that you have to know yourself pretty well to know what it is you're passionate about. So that kind of self-knowledge might not be there for a young person. It might take quite a while to really discover the thing that one is passionate about. So it would be interesting to get some comments on this. And another of the questions that I would have there is, Neville, you mentioned two things that you were so passionate about, virology and business. And I'm wondering, with the PPE, focus that your business turned to, did your previous passion help inform you there when you knew you had to start making these new protective equipment for people to use? Was that background in virology helpful there?
Well, I think, Natalie, absolutely. What you learn initially in your life, you can always use it later on. And up till this very day, I still have a very strong passion for virology. So I try to keep up to date with things. I still advise people, about viruses. I've always been, when SARS happened in Hong Kong, I don't know how much you know about SARS, but it was a huge thing for Hong Kong, where we all learned so much about hygiene, about having to wear masks and all that. So there was that fundamental initial impact that happened, that gave us that experience in life before anybody else experienced with this current pandemic with COVID. So we had that benefit. So I learned from that as well, plus the fact of my education in virology. But definitely we knew, or well, I knew that we need to be protective and to prevent this from spreading. And I think it wasn't only me. I think Hong Kong generally learned very fast based on our experience with SARS. And because of that experience, we have managed to control this COVID pandemic probably better than any other developed city has. You know, today, well, yesterday, we had 0 local cases in a big city of 7 to 8 million people. 0. Now that is a big plus for any city to have achieved. How did we achieve that? I think basically through our experience in the past. And of course, the question is, do you learn from your experience in the past? It's very important, as I say, that we should learn. And that becomes with a mindset. And I think, you know, people in Hong Kong have a different mindset to people in the West. You know, we all wear our masks, we all social distances. You know, you'll find that 99.9% of people have been wearing masks from day one of this pandemic. In other words, since early of last year. So we've managed to keep it under control. And through that, we know that it's a great demand for masks, and masks are essential to keep this pandemic under control. And I think that has helped me as well to develop into the alternative in our business, to find that, to keep our options open, as I keep saying, and find this option to develop something different. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Somebody else, Nazneen, split.
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I think what Natalie brought up, she made a very, very interesting comment that if I do something long enough, I become passionate about it. I would venture, I'm not a philosophy person, I'm not an intellectual for sure. But thinking about this question brings me to comment that it might not be just passion that makes you do something. It could also be your values to do something properly just because that's who I am as a person. Passion to me would be where I love this so much. Even I'm gonna get up and just do this. I think about it all the time. Doing something because because who I am, even if I don't like it, that is just values, not so much passion. That's just my opinion, and I think Karishma could comment on something like that as well, being a neuroscience background.
Ryan, you've got the insight. You've seen students and students and students. You know you're right. You just know you're right. But that's quality of steadfastness, but it needs to go with what you said. And you clearly said that. You said, don't bang your head against a wall just because you know you want to stand there banging your head against a wall. And that balance is something that I think comes both with observing others, being able to then reflect upon when is the right time to pivot, and then having the confidence in oneself to then make that choice and that decision, whether it is right to persevere in this direction or is wise to persevere upon the task, but in a subtly different way, in the same direction, no doubt, along so that we get to the goal, but just by deviating a little bit. And that is what I suppose we're all aiming for, to polish our minds so that we can make those choices, be open to learning from ourselves and others.
Thank you. Nazneen, you're getting ready to say something?
I just wanted to say, in the Zoroastrian Faculty Network, you are concentrating on people who have learning trade or industry of high finance or all kinds of medicine or law. But what about the arts? What about the fine arts or the performing and creative arts? Because now, as you know, I'm in charge of one of the scholarships on Khazana that is art related. And we're now getting more and more people who are applying for these kind of scholarships, and we have a very small budget. But as it's getting known, we have 12, 13, 14 applicants, but we only have money for maybe 5 or 6 at the most, and they just get a little bit. But there are so many different fields in the arts that people are involved in our community, like the theater arts, performing arts, and painting and drawing and culinary, and fine arts. So is the faculty network looking at that?
So let me answer that question. What you've heard today is the creation of intellectual, economic, and social value. So why would you go to a university? You go to a university to learn how to create value. So we have people who come from the arts, we have people who come from the social sciences, we have people who come from for the STEM disciplines. Engineering is anchored in physics, chemistry, and biology. So that's the foundational theory. And what we do in engineering is to educate or provide an opportunity for students to learn how to create value that is anchored in these 3 disciplines. In the arts, take music, for example. It's anchored in music theory. And at a university, professors go along and say, all right, we're going to educate you how to create value based on music theory. If you go to journalism, if you go to political science, all of them have certain principles. And the role of a university is to educate people, educate whoever wants to be educated to learn how to create value. That's why you go to a university. That's why you go to get educated. That is the point we want to make out. So the Zoroastrian Faculty Network is open for people in all disciplines. In fact, we have just launched a pilot project for the United Kingdom. And it is focused on the humanities and the social sciences for people who wish to get their PhDs in this area and then give back to the community. Work with faculty, Zoroastrian faculty in the United Kingdom to make it happen. Why not in North America? That's a different story. But this is where we come from. And this is what the foundational notion is in terms of creating value. Idar, would you like to add to that, please?
No, you covered it very, very well.
I think, thank you. I now understand. Yeah, thanks for your explanation.
Can I just say a word about how we help students with funding for art subjects?
Go ahead.
We, at the R.D. Setna Scholarship Fund, were concentrating on helping students go into engineering backgrounds, medical, etc. But for a long time, we had not considered the arts, the fine arts, what you've just mentioned. And I'm happy to state that our trustees have taken a conscious decision to support the fine arts as well. And we have provided loan scholarships to students who went on to study music, dramatics, filmmaking, photography. All sorts of fine art subjects are now covered under our scholarship program. This is just to let you know, and we give good amount of scholarships to help students achieve their goals. Thank you.
Farrokh, may I add?
Sure, certainly.
See, even at the J endowment, by definition, has no discrimination towards any discipline. You can choose whatever discipline you want. So this year also, like we are in the Fall 21 scholarship program, and we have received quite a few applications from students who are going in for masters in fine arts. Some people are going for dramatics. There is somebody going for a master's in kinesiology, only kinesiology. You know, in related to sport. We've seen somebody going for a master's in dance therapy, not dance, but dance therapy, which you can do in Australia, especially in Melbourne, you can do. So we've never had a policy of encouraging or discouraging. J Tata is open to everybody, whatever your discipline, it makes no difference to us. It's only focuses on merit. But outside that, in the Tata Trust, part of the work that I handle, we have a grant, we called it a spectrum because it covers a very broad range of needs. It covers sports people, it covers musicians. For example, this year, last 2 years, we funded 2 people who learned the Rudravina from the Ustad himself. And we are funding one guy who is learning the Asian harp instrument. And we funded a 2-year research into the making of Rudravina, because it's done by 2 families and it's facing the extinction of a, that if these 2 families didn't do it, then we are facing the prospect of Rudravina not being made at all. And in the Indian society, Rudravina is very, many Hindus also don't know about it, but it is actually considered the instrument of the gods. And very few people actually, there is a family called the Dagar family who practice a music called Drupal. It's considered the purest form of music, both vocal and Rudravina. And this one family has been playing. So fortunately, I know the Ustad. And so together we said, okay, we will fund this research. So we are funding 2 people so they're researching into materials, modern materials in the making of. So your point is valid, Nazrin. I accept this because there is this overhang of the hard sciences. And unfortunately today, with the way the world is moving, it's in that direction. But what people are not realizing it, precisely because the world is moving in this kind of a hard science, engineering, math, you are now going to face a situation where disciplines like psychology, applied psychology, behavioral therapy are going to become vastly more important, because people will rapidly lose the ability to deal with other people. They are all forever on their Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and a family doesn't know how to relate to themselves. Human interaction is going to be a passe. So I'm sure that Karishma will probably have a lot more to say on this, but I sincerely believe that human to human interaction is going to be a serious problem. But you may have heard that during this pandemic in India, domestic violence increased a lot. So we know a lot of dental surgeons. So I asked him, so how are things? He says, we've been extremely busy. And so I asked him why. He said, we get 5 to 6 cases every week of domestic violence. The jaw being broken, the mouth being broken, so the dead. So, the pandemic has created, it has suddenly shown one thing that has been long known, but not openly expressed, that people are losing the ability to relate to other people. We are more comfortable with gadgets, but we are not comfortable. 2 things. A, we don't know what to do with ourselves. People don't know how to be left to themselves. They're paranoid. And 2, they don't know how to deal with other people. So, during the pandemic, the one thing we focused on as a family, I live with it's my mom-in-law's house. So my mom-in-law, my wife, I, and my sister-in-law. We made sure that we have a lively environment at home, constantly helping each other, making sure that nobody feels. This is going to be a huge area of work. In fact, I'm going to request you, Karish, everybody, in the Jain Tata Endowment website, we constantly upgrade an area called courses. So we keep writing about courses which are not commonly thought of by students. So please do take a look at that. Nazrin, I take your point. We have to find some way to bring this pendulum back to what you're saying. Very important.
Thank you. Niloufar Daruwala, any comments, any questions? We have a few minutes left. So I just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance. Yes, Idham, go ahead.
Slightly different subject. We've talked on the importance of passion, persistence, sports, being all round. Very little was said about academic grades. And so just wanted to ask you the importance or relevance of standardized testing. How do we relate that to all these different factors?
Very
Ryan
tough
and
question.
this relates to the
Very tough question.
Quick answer, short answer, so we can get many people going. Go ahead, Ravishankar. Then Ryan. and then Mayor had his hand up, so it's his. It'll be his. So go ahead, answer Idal Ravishankar.
We
and
have
then,
to use something, right? So we understand that it's a constraint that we have to use. So whomsoever is using it has to be aware that, okay, this is not the be all end of all everything. See, let's put it like this, Edel. On the one hand, we say that the world is changing, everything is dynamic. So why should a subject not be dynamic? What is the great sanctity of a degree in a course, in a discipline, which must have seen fundamental changes, you tell me? What is the great sanctity of a campus-based education? When children are using more and more through digital resources, what is the sanctity? But the problem is that when you're dealing with a large number, you have to start somewhere. But to recognize this itself is a starting point.
One of the reasons why I really enjoy coming on these programs is the insights and the questions that you get are so phenomenal. I really, really appreciate that. With your point about the standardized exams, as Ravi Shankar said, we have to start somewhere. There's no cure-all that'll actually measure. For example, I spoke a little bit about my background, writing long answers. I hated it. When I go to the US, they had almost short answer, multiple choice. I aced it. So how do you know what is correct? So standardized exams, it's a good starting point, but actually meeting the person for an interview, that's where you really get to know who the person is. And for that, on that point, also the US universities, a lot of them are moving away from standardized exams at this point.
thank you. Mayor, your last comment, last question, and then we can go into the
Okay,
closing.
I think most of the speakers, first of all, did a superb job. Thank you very much. They talked about parental support. And as a parent and an educator, there are three things that I found very important to have successful kids. Number one, we should learn to walk with them, not walk for them. Number two, we should provide directions without giving directives. And number three, the sweet spot is not static, it's dynamic. We should be mindful of that. That's it.
Very good.
That's a lovely summary. So with that, let me share my screen again and invite closing statements. So closing statements. Neville.
Thank you, Farrokh. It was a very interactive session, I must say. Thank you very much. I would just like to say to the students and to the young Zoroastrians to summarize all this is to say, venture beyond your comfort zone and your boundaries. Certainly be patient and persevere. As Ryan very eloquently mentioned about not giving up. You shouldn't give up. You should persevere in any new career, job, and particularly in startups. You need to really be patient and understand that this is not going to be something that you're going to achieve overnight. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of time. You need to be a visionary to be successful, i.e. you need to think ahead, anticipate, adapt, and certainly be resourceful. What I would like to say is that for the young people, that you should have a roadmap where you want yourself to be in 10 years' time and where you want your company to be. Because basically that is going to be your future. And certainly invest in education, invest in knowledge, as that's going to be your greatest asset. I also want to say that, you know, I know this is about academics and about education, but to be successful as an entrepreneur, you do not necessarily have to have a higher education. You need to have a good idea and follow it through. For example, some of the largest organizations today are started by people with a very humble education, but with a brilliant idea and a lot of luck, because luck is very, very important in any startup. That's basically what I have to say to conclude. But I'd like to end with an appropriate quote from Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change that survives. So I think that's a very appropriate comment to end on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ravishankar.
I just want to tell students a couple of things as a summary. One, look for opportunities arising from any area. If you took, for example, say e-commerce, but for the very fact that the growth in e-commerce means that you will need more warehouses. So many students don't seem to understand that there is a physical component to the digital domain. So short of a purely digital domain such as say music or a film, there is a physical component to the digital side. So you can build warehouses. If Flipkart and Amazon or everybody else is growing, they need some place to keep their goods. So you will need warehouses throughout the country. So you could build a business only in developing warehouses. Another point is that when people speak about cloud computing, children don't seem to realize that there is nothing in the cloud. It's very much in the Mother Earth. And you need a data center. So just because there's a growth in cloud computing, it doesn't mean anything. The physical side, you need a data center. In fact, you need bigger and bigger data centers. So you could build a business in setting up data centers to support a cloud-based business. So understanding business opportunities is a very, very difficult task. It's a huge challenge. But that's something that you can focus on. Now, you look at YouTube, with 24, like Amazon, Netflix, everybody is trying to offer. So there is a desperate search for quality content, entertainment content. So you could start building a business in web series. In Japan, somebody wrote a novel, serialized a novel on a mobile phone. So every day there will be a little bit. And it became so popular, it was published as a print novel. Can you imagine the other way around? So you don't know today where will the opportunities come from in the digital field itself, the digital field which has a certain physical component. Look at both. It's not easy that you can train yourself to think.
I'll talk about, just reiterate my main point is never ever give up. People love to try pushing you down, telling you you're not good enough, you cannot do it. Listen, constantly learn about yourself, take time out to stop when things get rough, but never ever give up. The parents, I think what the last person mentioned about those 3 points, they were brilliant. I couldn't have said them better about letting your child learn by themselves. After all, even little birds will not learn to fly unless they're pushed out of the nest. So be with them, guide them, but give them that independence so that they can learn for themselves. Good luck, and I wish you all the best in everything you'll do.
I would like to say some points on closing remarks. Always be ready for change. Be adaptive to the situations at hand, and you will be successful. Believe in yourself. Be confident. That's a great feeling. And when you're confident, you will achieve what you want to achieve. Have that never say die attitude. And chase your dreams and fulfill them. When you dream about something, be confident, take it forward, seek help, seek advice, and you will fulfill them. Don't feel shy at all. Be confident, have that attitude, and you will succeed in life. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for this wonderful session. And my pleasant job is to share with you that we have a website which is updated almost on a weekly basis, where we talk about not only these webinars, but we also talk about various other options available to students both in terms of scholarships, internships, new types of courses, etc., etc. We also have a Facebook page called Zoroastrian Faculty Network, where we share all the information that we get on the website, as well as some others who would like to share their performances or their experiences. If they are welcome to come and share. Thank you very much.
I'd like to start by inviting Mayor Amalsad to repeat what he said. The 3 points that he made, and record these for posterity.
Okay, I said, to the best of my recollection, is that to give good parental support, we must focus on walking with our children, not walking for our children, because the former will empower them, the latter will not. Second thing, to the best of my recollection, I mentioned about is to provide directions without giving directives, because we have a tendency to give directions, and at the same time, it comes with directives. As a result, it is not as effective in terms of kids wanting to accept it. And the third thing that I mentioned is we talked about the intellectual, economic, and social value. In that, the sweet spot that we are looking at is not static, it is dynamic. We need to have that flexibility in our understanding in raising kids to make sure that we appreciate their dynamism in life. Thank you.
So thank you all very much. I much appreciate, on behalf of the WZCC and the ZFN, I thank the panelists. I thank Karishma. I thank Nazneen Mistree, who has been involved in the coaching sessions. And I now invite Idil, the president of the WZCC, to make his closing remarks.
Yeah. No, everyone has made very, very valuable comments. So I don't have really anything to add to that except to thank everyone for it. Perhaps the only point I would like to emphasize is that entrepreneurship is a very inclusive concept. And without knowing it, everyone is using it in some form or fashion. And I would like to argue that we cannot solve our world's problems today without entrepreneurship. Okay.
So with that, thank you all very much. And we'll keep this channel open for those of you who would like to continue the dialogue. Yazdi will stop recording, and we can continue the dialogue as long as you'd like.